Hi there, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching, and today we are going to talk about the 4 principles that I teach our clients to stop paying attention to the chaos with your child, breaking out of the transition meltdown cycle that you're in, especially if your highly sensitive child is really struggling to follow through on regular everyday tasks. Okay, so here at MTC, we help parents of highly sensitive kids eliminate daily meltdowns in as little as 8 weeks. And I'm going to keep this podcast short for a couple reasons. One, we have a theme of transitions today, and I am actually in transition. My family is moving across different states, so I have to record a bunch of shows for you, and I need to do them quickly. So that one is for me. And then the second one is for you, because we have such a wealth of binge-worthy content over the years and produced so much. There are actually several podcast shows available for you on the concept of transitions that I would love for you to search and listen in to do a deep dive. So what I want to talk about is the challenge that you might be experiencing at this point regarding helping your sensitive kid break out of the pattern of not following your directions. And obviously this is very stressful because you could be in a rush yourself, right? If it's time for you to get to work and your child is struggling to either get out of bed or move on from breakfast, then your emotional intensity can be at a heightened state, which will decrease the availability for your child to respond in an effective way. And so the first thing we always advise first is to check yourself before you wreck yourself. That is not principle number 1. It is the understood principle of parenting, right? And also when parenting a sensitive kid can feel very, very hard to do. And so with following an ineffective approach, it is not your fault that you're losing your mind on a daily basis too, or a weekly basis if you feel fried or exhausted. It is, though, your responsibility to change your approach. So we're here, okay? We want to talk about why most parents get stuck. A lot of that is because you're following more traditional approaches, or you're trying to raise your kid based on the way that you were raised. And this is typical for the first approach to parenting, unless, of course, you are clear you do not want to repeat history with how you were raised. And so then we see parents trying to overcorrect at times in the parenting angle with gentle parenting that feels insufficient. So what I want to do is really highlight the challenges that you're likely dealing with. Obviously, like we said, getting off to work or to school, which we know at the time of this show production is August, so it's coming your way typically, but you may or may not have started school back up again. And then also we have bedtime transitions. I know for sure in August you are absolutely helping your child follow sleep more on, related to their impending school schedule. And this is something that you need to be keeping in mind now. We always advise our clients to pay attention to the school schedule much earlier than a week in advance, so children's circadian rhythms have the opportunity to regulate, and the family can get into a routine and work on practicing that routine before it's actually go time. And so one of the things that you want to be focusing on is highlighting how long it actually takes your child to settle in and digest from the hustle and bustle of a summer day, and work on shrinking that amount of time so that your child can get to bed earlier. And then the next thing that is important for you, and you may be struggling with at this point, your child may be struggling with at this point, is a presumption that your child doesn't necessarily care about your needs or your priorities. Now, I know that this is likely more of a trigger for you than it is an outright assumption. And I want to highlight this because it really does play in to the frustration that you're experiencing when you have to repeat yourself. And when sensitive kids are really invested in an activity that they're engaged in, and this is screen time or not screen time activity, your child is focused and zeroed in a deep way. So they are paying attention to all kinds of details. They're taking in a ton of information from their world at that time. And so it is important to notice your child may not actually hear all of what you're asking them to respond to when you ask them to do a certain task or to move on from the task at hand. So I want to give you the opportunity to pay attention to your child's desire to be focused on whatever it is that they're doing, and it has nothing to do with their opinion of whatever it is that you are asking them to do. And that is separate from the activity that you might be asking them to do. So there are two separate emotional assessments that your child is making or being asked to make when you're asking them to transition. And so this brings me to principle number 1. We want to be focusing on connection, not control. You may feel an urge or an irritance that if you're not heard, your pet peeves of not being followed is triggered, right? You might have come from a family where first time obedience was taught, or principles that you think are important is that your child follows your lead in the household, right? And I absolutely agree that children are children and adults are adults. So we want our children to follow us and trust that we have their best interest in mind. And it's also true that your child could be struggling with moving from their presence in the moment of play or whatever engagement that they're in to the activity that you need them to. And then that shift of their focus is actually a lot harder than you might think it is. And there are a lot of factors playing into it. And it depends on what the circumstance is, as well as how old your child is. In addition to that, what the sensory implications are when we're thinking about why your child isn't following your direction. So it is really crucial that you not jump to the belief that your child is trying to control you and therefore needs to be controlled. So that is really important. You want to make sure that you're building that trust and emotional safety first from your presumption of the fact that your child was not put on this earth to be miserable. They are not actively trying to sabotage their relationship with you because, quite frankly and clearly, that would be against their own survival mechanisms. So biologically, we are all human, we are all flawed, and so we will always act in a self-serving manner. And what that means is that at the core, your child will engage in self-preservation. And if your child is preserving themselves and destroying the relationship with you, that means that your child is actually very much suffering because it is counterproductive for children to destroy their relationship with their parents towards their survival. So we want to highlight that as a big aha moment that we often help our parents shift into, parents that work with us, so that you can truly double down that your child is miserable if that's a decision that they are engaging in regularly. They don't have the skills to actually preserve themselves and engage in behavior that is going to help them thrive. Next is attunement, not assumption. So I already highlighted a little bit of that, right? But I want you to really look at where your child could be struggling, because if your kid at times is refusing to put on shoes, it might be because of the sensory needs of that particular shoe. It also might be what that shoe represents for your child. If that shoe represents going to school and they'd rather be at home, then we have a shoe refusal that's actually really a school refusal. So we want to be paying attention to the avoidance you need to take on just having a quick retort to your child when they are saying that they don't want to do something, because it's not always what they are saying that is really what's driving their needs at that point. Principle number 3 is emotional co-regulation, and doing that without behavior modification. So when you're regulating with your child, you are not always going to immediately see a change in your child's behavior in the sense that they follow your directions. And one of the things that we coach our clients on is being able to detach from the initial outcome of their child complying and seeing that immediate behavior modification, because the neediness that that implies is actually unhealthy. When you are regulating with your child, and co-regulating with your child, it is very necessary that you separate your child from your relationship with your child from the production of their behavior. And that is what is actually called consistent and consistently demonstrates unconditional love. And it is very difficult to demonstrate unconditional love when you're stuck in survival mode, because it can be a automatic reaction for you to engage in behavior that demonstrates rejection of your child, characterization of who they are. I can't believe you're doing such a thing. What's wrong with you? Things like that just spill out of your mouth when you're super frustrated and overwhelmed. And obviously an apology is necessary in that respect as a parent. Please know that we've heard and seen it all for parents in terms of what comes out of your mouth and what you might be stuck with. So there is no shame in sharing that with our team when you have a conversation with us about what you could be struggling with. And we have helped families break out of all kinds of word vomit, ineffective language that you'd be using, even if you're not outwardly yelling at your kid, but you're expressing disgust or frustration in that. In that challenge that you're having with your kiddo, and everything is repairable. No person on this earth was put on this earth to be miserable. That means that you can absolutely repair the dynamic that you're contributing to at this point when you're not at your best. And the next thing that I want to speak on is empowerment, not just enforcement. One thing that I see so frequently with parents of highly sensitive kids is that your child might seem like they can't follow a step-by-step process because they are easily overwhelmed and overstimulated while they're stuck in the meltdown cycle. And that might indicate to you that your child needs clear and specific step-by-step instructions, and they need to be told exactly what to do. And highly sensitive kids, when overwhelmed and stuck, absolutely struggle with generalizing a skill from one environment to the next. That is true when they're stuck in the meltdown cycle. However, in order to break your kid out of the meltdown cycle, you will have to learn how to demonstrate confidence that your kid is capable of solving their own problems and determining their own step-by-step instructions, so that you're not becoming a drill sergeant in your house, okay? So because I'm sure you would not give two hoots if your kid ate breakfast and then got dressed, or ate breakfast and then brushed their teeth and then got dressed and then packed their backpack. If they were able to do all of that in a day, like in the time that's necessary in order to get out the door, you wouldn't care the order that it was done, obviously, as long as they're brushing their teeth either after at least once, right? Whether they do it after they eat breakfast or before. I'm sure if they're doing it regularly, you would probably be A-okay with that at this point, because right now you're probably arguing a lot about teeth brushing or any sort of hygiene, especially of a 9, 10, 11-year-old at this time. And so, or younger, we see this gap happen twice in early childhood for kids. And the important piece around this is that when the survival mode starts to happen and you are a goal-oriented person, you can start to move into a sense where you start barking orders, where as soon as the child finishes the next task, you are the order giver. You are the one that's giving them the orders, probably because you gave them a chore chart and they weren't able to follow it regularly. And so then you just decided to take that away and give them one task at a time. And so while asking them to do 6 tasks if they weren't able to do 1 is definitely reducing that is a good start, it is not a sustainable practice for you to always have the chore chart in your head. That just improves the amount of details you need to keep in your mind and really adds to your mental load, which can add to more frustration, which then adds to more resentment if your child's not demonstrating skill acquisition in a frequent and constant manner. So I'm going to leave you with these principles. I would encourage you to comment below this video. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, I would encourage you to write into the team, mt@meganthompsoncoaching.com, and let us know where your biggest challenges are when you're struggling or with your child who is having a hard time balancing the needs of the family with transitions as well as their own needs, and start to pay attention to where some of these aha moments plug in. I look forward to hearing what you have to say about that. Talk soon.